You have a grandstand seat here to one of the most momentous events in the history of science. In less than a minute, you will see the most powerful explosion ever witnessed by human eyes.
Well, at least an explosion of knowledge. Welcome to the truth. It's been waiting. With commentary on the news, reviews, and interviews, it's the Libertarian Links webcast.
Never filmed in front of a live studio audience, it's the Libertarian Links webcast. Thank you for joining us. We've got a new feature tonight. We've got our producer cam. It'll show us our producer, and she can be an active participant in the show. Thank you for being a part of this yourself. We couldn't do it without support. And if you enjoy the webcast, please visit the YouTube page and subscribe and like. And on the Facebook, please share it with other people and like the videos. I really wanted to get into some domestic stuff, but the Syria information is too important. So let's go right to the Facebook page and get into it. Our first story comes out of the UK. UK Parliament rejects Prime Minister's plan for intervention in Syria. It's an AP story. London. British Prime Minister David Cameron lost a vote endorsing military action against Syria by 13 votes Thursday, a stunning defeat that will almost guarantee that Britain plays no direct role in any U.S. attack. A grim-faced Cameron conceded after the vote that the British Parliament, reflecting the views of the British people, does not want to see British military action. They don't. And almost nobody does. We don't. France is the only country in NATO that I could see that really wants to have any attack on Syria. And I don't understand their angle. And it's playing out well here at home, too, because on our next story, under colossal global backlash, Obama holds off on Syria strike. This is off InfoWars. And I watched it live. I don't know if you did, but it was very interesting. Obama addressed the public on Saturday from the White House Rose Garden. He confirmed the United States' intention to use force against Syria, however, is reportedly waiting to enforce military action until Congress is able to hold a debate and vote on the matter. Obama claims he has the authority to move forward solo, but surprisingly stated it's important for the country to debate military intervention. Now, he says he can do it alone, and we covered in the last show how the theory inside of the Obama government is that he can carry these attacks out and he doesn't have to answer to anybody. He just has to get NATO approval or UN approval to carry out these attacks. And they've said this time that they don't need UN. They've said they don't need to wait for the UN. They've already made up their decision. So why all of a sudden the about face? Why all of a sudden is he saying, okay, well, we need to debate this and we need to get Congress to vote on it? I think it's because of the 2014 midterms coming up. This is so unpopular with the American people that if he goes it alone and doesn't get Congress's approval, then the responsibility for this attack falls solely on the Democrats. And he knows if he does it, they're going to lose big time in the 2014 midterms. They're going to get swamped. So he wants now to kick it over to Congress, to punt it to Congress, which people generally think of as Republican because they have a majority in the House. And if he can get it passed, if it passes, now the Republicans will be the ones holding the football. Because Republican, Democrat, well, the Republicans had the chance to say no, and they didn't. And it'll further alienate their base, and they'll end up losing in the 2014 midterms. That's what I think he's doing. That's why I think he's saying, well, we're going to let them decide on this. Well, let me be clear. We're going to let them decide. We're going to debate this. Because he says he has the authority on his own. He also says that 10 days ago, the world watched in horror as men, women, and children were massacred in Syria in the worst chemical weapons attack of the 21st century. Yesterday, the United States presented a powerful case that the Syrian government was responsible for this attack to its own people. What was his case? What was his evidence? Paraphrasing, my assertion is corroborated, his words now, with what we can plainly see. Hospitals overflowing with victims, terrible images of the dead. All told, well over 1,000 people were murdered. Several hundred of them were children, young girls and boys, gassed by their own government. So he's saying we presented our case that the Syrian government did this. And here's the evidence, and here's what corroborates our evidence, our case that Syria did this. Men, women, and children in hospitals, people who have been gassed. So the footage of the attack, the stuff coming out of Syria, corroborates that the Syrian government carried out the attack. That doesn't make any sense. That's like saying John McCain has a crush on Barack Obama, and the evidence is this picture. And anything could be happening in that picture. His teeth could be falling out. But this is the case he's making. This is what he's saying. We haven't seen anything yet. As a matter of fact, the United Nations says it'll be 2 more weeks before they get before they're finished with their investigation. That could be another one of the reasons why he's stalling. He said he doesn't want to wait on the UN. But anyway, finally, we're hearing something out of the Republicans other than McCain. Which, as a matter of fact, McCain made a statement just today saying that it would be a terrible mistake if we don't attack Syria. What the heck? A terrible mistake, a catastrophic mistake, something like that? I just briefly saw the news before I started the show. Warmongering. I don't understand it. But we have our first words from John Boehner, who's been non-existent for months now. Disappeared. I have no idea what he's been doing. But here he is finally. According to the House Speaker, John Boehner, the House will consider a measure on Syria military action the week of September 9th. So, first we hear that this is so terrible that Syria's used these chemical weapons and it's an atrocity, it's a moral obscenity, and we must do something. Now it's, we're going to wait till September 9th when Congress comes back from vacation, and then we're going to vote on it. I don't know. But one of the things that they should discuss, and they should discuss with the American people, that they should make clear, is the evidence that they have for making a military act, for acting militarily against Syria. What is the evidence? Don't keep it secret. Don't say, it's classified, and then not share it. If you want the American people to be supportive of what you're going to do, tell us why you're making these decisions. Next story. Rebels admit responsibility for chemical weapons attack. This is from InfoWars. Now, I know that some people may say, it's InfoWars. But this was an AP reporter. His name is Dale Glavak. Okay? This guy has worked for the BBC. He's worked for the Associated Press. He's worked for many reputable news organizations. You can look him up. He was in the Damascus suburb of Ghouta. That's not important. What's important is what they said to him while he was there. Syrian rebels in a Damascus suburb of Ghouta have admitted to Associated Press correspondent Dale Glavak that they were responsible for last week's chemical weapons incident, which Western powers have blamed on Bashar al-Assad's forces, revealing that the casualties were a result of an accident caused by rebels mishandling chemical weapons provided to them by Saudi Arabia. From numerous interviews with doctors, Ghouta residents, rebel fighters, and their families, many believe that certain rebels received chemical weapons via Saudi intelligence chief Prince Bandar bin Sultan and were responsible for carrying out the deadly gas attack. This is being ignored in the media. This is the Associated Press. If we want the truth, if we're looking to get to the bottom of what happened and not jump into conclusions, why isn't this being investigated more? Why isn't this being shared? The rebels are saying that they got chemical weapons from Saudi Arabia and that they accidentally set them off. Now, here's the thing. With chemical weapons, there's a signature. You can tell where the weapons came from, who made them. If they're professionally made, if they're made by the rebels in a lab, if they're made in Saudi Arabia, the container that they were in. So the United Nations in their investigation, if they collected any of this evidence, they'll be able to tell where the gas came from. But I don't think that really Obama is interested in finding out where the weapons came from. I don't think John Kerry's interested. That's why they say they already know where they came from. And that's what leads Ron Paul to make this assertion in our next story. Now, hopefully everybody knows what a false flag attack is, but I'll tell you a little bit about it. Ron Paul, chemical weapons, a false flag. Now, a false flag, the term comes from ships. Pirate ships, ships on the sea, when they would fly a flag that wasn't the flag of their navy. They would drop their flag, their identifying flag, and put up another one so that whatever action they carried out wouldn't be attributed to the navy they were from, to the nation that they were from, to whoever they belonged, that they would be attributed to somebody else, and they could do it and get away with it. Eventually, these things came to be used for different reasons, and the United States has been involved. And one of the best examples is the Reichstag fire in Germany. Hitler set fire to the Reichstag so he could pin it on his enemies, and then claim that there was this terrible attack. They burned the Capitol building, and then he could arrest and execute and detain his enemies on his rise to power, to fulfill his desire and his destiny to rule all of Egypt, or all of Germany. In the United States, we also have a history of false flags. We have a history going back to the Maine in the Spanish-American War. We said that it was sunk. Later we found out that it was a boiler that blew up. That's a type of a false flag. We have the Gulf of Tonkin incident in the Vietnam War, where we said we engaged a North Vietnamese vessel, and we didn't. There was no vessel. It was all made up. And finally, there is a actual declassified CIA program called Operation Northwoods. And in Operation Northwoods, they wanted to provoke a war with Cuba. Codename Operation Northwoods, planned to reportedly assassinate Cuban immigrants, sink boats of Cuban refugees, hijack planes, blow up a U.S. ship, and even orchestrating violent terrorism in U.S. cities. And all of this would have been designed to blame Cuba so that we could, as a pretext for war. So the United States does do false flags. We have historically conducted and planned false flag attacks. Now let's look at what Ron Paul says. Assad, I don't think, is an idiot. I don't think he would do this on purpose in order for the whole world to come down on them. The implication is Assad committed 100,000 killings, and there's a lot of factions out there. Why don't we ask about Al-Qaeda? I think it's a false flag. I think really, indeed. Okay, so he's connecting the dots, just like we did in our last show. Assad's winning the war. He's not an idiot. He knows if he uses chemical weapons, the United States is going to step in. So I don't think he would do this on purpose in order for the whole world to come down on them, because Assad's not an idiot. The implication is that Assad committed 100,000 killings. Why aren't we asking about Al-Qaeda? Would you put it past Al-Qaeda to set off chemical weapons to get the United States involved? And since we're already providing them with weapons and support, would you put it past our CIA and our government to allow it to happen as a pretext for war? Now you say, why would we want to go to war with Syria? Good question. Why would we want to go to war with Syria? Why would we want to do it? General Wesley Clark, retired General Wesley Clark, said in an interview, and you could see it online, that the Bush administration planned to take out 7 countries in 5 years: Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. His words. So I came back to see him a few weeks later, a guy he knew in the Pentagon. By that time, we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He reached over on his desk and picked up a piece of paper. And he said, "I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office, then Donald Rumsfeld. "Today." And he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq, and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran." I said, "Is it classified?" He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Well, then don't show it to me." And I saw him a year or so later, and I said, "You remember that?" What's the point here? Why am I bringing this up? Going back to 2007, Wesley Clark said that he was already aware of a plan that was in place to take out Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. Many of these fell during the Arab Spring. Libya, Somalia has always been down. Sudan has been a disaster. They had a civil war. Iraq, taken down. So all that's really left here is Iran and Syria. Iran is the ultimate goal. Iran, we all know, we've heard the rhetoric for years about Iran and nuclear weapons. But Syria is the next one on the list. Finally, we have this photo, which I think sums up the reason why people in the United States have only given 9% of the people have given their support to this conflict. We know it's not right. We know that there's something wrong. This guy does.